Right, good morning. My name is Paul Burke. I'm the head of products for Centrix Software. Thank you for attending this session. What this session is really going to focus on is how we as Centrix have taken the experience. We'll try and relate to you a real-world experience of how we've helped organizations accelerate their journey through transformation, taking them from traditional everything on local desktops to a more flexible, structured, multi-layered application delivery infrastructure, how we help them make some key decisions along the way with that, and ultimately how we've helped some organizations make it simple and straightforward to take all the applications and content in that new flexible world and easily deliver that back to the users so you get the best user experience. So myself and Jeremy are going to share this. I'm not going to bore you with any PowerPoint slides. Hopefully you'll be pleased to hear. I'm going to hand over to Jeremy in a minute. I wanted to spend a couple of seconds talking about Centrix Software. Centrix Software was born out of a company called Centrix Consulting that's been around for nearly 15 years now, and was a consultant in virtualization for many, many years. So we took that years of experience in that area of helping organizations build out virtual infrastructure, and we've turned that into a product or a couple of products that really help organizations accelerate that journey. So that's our kind of pedigree and history. It's based on a lot of experience and engagement we've had with real customers. And with that, let me hand over to Jeremy, who will start out on the first part of our product set, which is Workspace IQ, and how that helps you go from traditional desktops to a new transformed application and content delivery world. Jeremy.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning. My name's Jeremy Bulloch from Centrix Software. My job title is Data Scientist, although I think of myself more as a data monkey. Is it not on? My
Do you want this one? This one's working. You can have this if you want.
I will work with technology.
Joys of technology. Here we go.
You need that one as well.
Yeah.
Somebody should have brought an extra lav in for this room. That one as well, please, as a backup. Thanks. Great. Sorry. That mic's on top of that one.
In stereo now.
Yep.
Can you hear me at the back? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeremy Bulloch from Centrix Software. My job title is Data Scientist, which is a rather grand title for someone who gets to spend most of their life wallowing in big data. For me, it's the best job in the world, although my colleagues often take the sort of Vic Reeves stance with me and start rubbing their thighs when I get too down and dirty in the data. I'm going to try and stay above that today, but there'll be a point where I will go right the way down into the weeds, which is where I like to go, just to show you some interesting things as much as anything else. Thanks, Paul, for the introduction. What I'm going to do is to focus around one thing, which is, I guess, how we are trying to make life easier for guys like you who are interested professionally in getting to a virtualization solution, so that we can focus your efforts and give you the maximum amount of time to use your expertise and not to have to wallow in all of the detail. As Paul says, we come from a background of having done this. So there are guys still in the company who have spent weeks with clipboards, standing behind users, asking awkward questions, getting told lies in order to try and discover what's actually happening in an organization. What we try and do with our software is to make that process easier. And because we come from a consulting background, we're not just interested in providing the data, although getting the data is the most important thing. What we're interested in doing is providing some of the smarts behind that data, and which is why I get to work for Centrix looking at what the data has to tell us, because there are some surprises in amongst the information that we're getting. So what is our IQ application about? Well, first of all, there's an agent that gets pumped out using whatever software deployment tools an organization uses. It's a relatively low impact agent. Paul can provide the detail with that. I'm not going to go down into that level here. And that agent starts to report in. And it does the sort of traditional things that you'd expect of an agent. It picks off inventory. It inventories the devices. It inventories the software that's installed on those devices. and then it starts to look at usage of the software on those devices. And some of the clever stuff that we do is in matching up what's installed with what's used, so that we've got a one-to-one matching between the application that's installed and what gets used. And that's always good value when you're looking for reducing cost. And basically, that's about it. It starts to collect data. Data, data, data. And you end up with a situation, and what we're going to do here is we're going to look at a live customer where we have around about 5,500 employees using around about 3,500 devices, 3 shifts during the day, where we've collected 25 million instances of usage. And if you think about this as sort of a burial pit, in the pit we've got devices, we've got users, we've got lots of pottery shards that say this user was using this application for this long, using this many resources on this day. And we drive down to a level of detail that other products don't. So we look in, we do what we call is looking inside the session. So we see a session, which is a start and a stop event. So I've opened up Outlook and I've closed Outlook. And for some people, that's a once-a-day thing. They open it up at 9 o'clock in the morning, they close it down at 5 o'clock at night. And during the day, a whole range of activities go on within that session, some of which are parented by that session, some of which aren't. And what our software does is it goes right inside the session and starts to pick off the document name, how long you were looking at the document, how many mouse clicks, key clicks, IOPS, GDI, etc., every time the user interacts with the software and the document. So it's a very, very low level of detail, which allows us to get a very rich view of user activity and what the user does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off and I'm just going to drive into the application itself and show you how easy it is to get to a first view of a virtualization solution. Now, we just come back from Synergy in the US, so you'll have to excuse me that this is a unashamedly Citrix orientated solution, but for those of you who use other solutions, there are other solutions available, and when we talk about XenApp or Streams Desktop or other such things, you can substitute your vendor of choice. But as we go through it, it's unashamedly Citrix at the moment. So out of the box, the agent gets installed on however many devices you've decided to assess, and starts to collect information. And the first thing that we do as we go in to use the software is a bit of preparation. And it's relatively straightforward. If I go into the hardware inventory first of all, what I can do is I can start to say, okay, if I look at Road Warrior, then anyone who uses a device which has got, which is a docking station, a portable, or a laptop, falls into my Road Warrior user category. They've got a laptop. So it's as simple as that, effectively. They've got something which indicates the sort of user that they are. It's not a definitive argument for them, but it gives an indication of what this user does. So I can go through my list, I can go through task workers, knowledge workers, secure workers. If I know what a particular chassis type does, who uses it in my organization, I can match that across. What I can also do is I can go to USBs. So if I go to my secure workers, if I know as the architect for that organization that anyone who uses an Aladdin USB key or an Aladdin HASP key is a secure user, I can effectively use that as a flag again. Now, at this stage, I'm just looking at the device. I'm looking at things on the device that give me a clue as to the person who uses that device, because I'm only interested in users. I'm not interested in lift and drop. I'm not interested in the device per se. I'm interested in users. So if you think about this in a sort of paleontological view, what we're interested in is what can we impute from a user who uses a device like this, or a USB stick like this, or an NIC like this. Am I making sense with this, guys? Yeah? So relatively straightforward stuff, but you have to use your intelligence. We're not trying to take away the intelligence here. We're just trying to focus it in the right way. So we can go through, we can do our classification at a hardware level, and that starts to give us a clue as to what people, what use categories, what workflow categories people fall into. Then if I go into application usage, so here I can see the application name, I can see the manufacturer, the version, and I can see how many users there are of that particular application. You know, at this point, the agent's been running for a week or two. We're starting to pick up all of that usage information, and this is, bear in mind, it's not based on last used, it's based on real usage every day, day in, day out. And we can start to flag up software that is, for example, a VPN indicator. So if someone has got this software, or someone uses this software, are they using VPN? And you may well at this point see where I'm coming from with this, because a road warrior is someone who actually takes a laptop out on the road. There are lots of people in lots of organizations that perhaps used to be road warriors, but actually now are senior managers, but they've still got their laptops. And the furthest journey that laptop takes each night is from the top of the desk to the bottom drawer. So if we start now to look at usage, is this person who's using a mobile device using VPN, we've got a very good chance now of starting to pick off what sort of user they are of that mobile. And what our software does is every time it takes a sample is it tries to ping two things. It tries to ping the internet and it tries to ping the corporate intranet. And if it gets a response to either of those, we know that the user's connected. So what we can see is the use of a VPN solution, which starts off in a connected to the internet state, and then applications that get delivered within the two VPN boundaries that have been connected to the intranet and to the internet as the VPN connection is made. So we can start to see who is using a laptop in a truly mobile sense. Who are the real road warriors as opposed to static mobile users? More than that, what you start to pick up is that you can actually then start to model that offline usage. So what do people use when they're in a completely offline state? What applications do they actually use when they're not connected to the internet, they're not connected to the intranet? Starting all the time to drive down to the real use cases. So here we can flag up the VPN solutions. We could also flag up any applications which indicate that this is a secure worker or a knowledge worker. Again, it just gives us that opportunity to start now to look at the other tools that the user is using, the applications, and to say this combination of device and software applications starts to indicate which use group the user falls into, which when we come to solutioning is a really important thing. Now the trouble with this, we've found, is that it's so beguilingly simple that you sort of miss quite how useful this is as a tool. The traditional method would be to go to a payroll list, an HR list, maybe Active Directory, go through that, start to allocate people to user groups, and to try and use that as a means to determine which category people fell into. Or you'd go out with the clipboard. What this does very, very quickly and very, very simply is to create those workflow use case buckets. And this is real user behavior. It's not what someone says, I always use my laptop. My laptop's really important to me, but actually it never goes further than the desk. So we start to pick that information off really quickly. I'm going to just briefly go into software inventory, really to show a couple of things really, really quickly. Firstly, we've got some quite smart stuff that does the matching across. We get very good hit rates, but we also pick up shortcuts. So we're not just restricted to the traditional application. We pick up things which are mounted either as shortcuts or which appear to be web applications which are in people's start menus. So we're starting to try and look at ways in which we can identify applications which won't be inventoried, because if we're not on the server that shortcut is pointing to, we won't be able to see it, or if we're definitely not on the web. If it's a web application, we won't be able to see it. So we're picking that stuff off at the same time. If it's in there as a properly formed shortcut, then we pick it up as an application and we start to monitor usage of it. We don't see an inventory, obviously, because we're not there, but we start to pick up the usage of it. And now where I'm going to go is the workspace designer for Citrix. And this is where I'm going to spend most of the rest of the presentation. And we start off with a view of the opportunity. And the opportunity is really based on a number of key metrics. Some of the obvious ones, things like application savings. So if in the software screen, you've put in how much an application costs, what the maintenance cost of that application is. Then we start to look at the delta between what's installed and what's used. Now this is, it all depends on your licensing position. It all depends on your licensing cycle. We're not setting ourselves out as a software asset management tool. We're just giving an indication here of the very soft potential savings by going down the virtualization route. And we're taking the delta between what's installed and what's used and looking at the difference in pounds, shillings, and pence terms. Same with the maintenance side. So depending on the client and where they are with their licensing, these may be harder or softer savings. At a really simple level, they at least represent a software pool that's available to the organization. So for an organization that's expanding or looking to move out, the applications that aren't used raise the opportunity of harvesting and pooling at the very, very least. The most interesting area we found in terms of reaction has been the notion of premises savings. Now we all know that if you adopt virtualization solutions, then hot desking becomes a much more viable alternative for you as an organization. And what we found is that when you actually look at enterprises which are spread across multiple locations, by taking usage and using the agent effectively as a clocking in, clocking out device, what we can see is who uses that building. And if the client uses the import facility in our software, you can import your HR information. So as long as you're using the username or some form of user identity, then you can put in their home location, you can put in their job title, you can put in their pay grade, you can even put in their desk information. And if you've got that, then all of a sudden you can start to look at the utilization of buildings. Now, given that one of the major benefits of virtualization is that flexibility, then all of a sudden life becomes very, very different for an organization. Very different in terms of the business case for this sort of stuff, because premises are expensive. And you tend to find that the clients who are interested in this are either going one of two ways. It's not me, is it? No, that's all right. They're going one of two ways. They're either in a retrenching situation, so they want to save premises and they'd like to exit from them, free them up, put them on the market, let the lease go, or they're expanding. Or they're expanding and they've reached a ceiling, so that the next layer of expansion means that they have to acquire a new office block or a new premises. So what this does is it uses the information to determine what the delta is between used space and unused space. And so in this instance, with this client who has around about 20 different locations for the 5,500 people, we allow you to put in the value per square foot of your space. And what we find here is that there's a premises saving opportunity of around about £2.1 million, which translates into an expansion opportunity, desks freed up, of around about 1,600. Now, let's not make this out to be a complete solution, because some of those desks will be in faraway places and you can't move people from here to there to fill that out. But this is a real opportunity for enterprises. And you think about someone that's got 3 or 4 locations in London, let's say, that 1,600 desks might represent a whole building. And it may well represent a lot more savings opportunity than just £2.1 million, because it could be a whole building, all the management that goes with it, all the facilities that go with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a real hard potential opportunity in there that is directly linked to virtualization. It's a real benefit, and we've just managed to quantify it. So I'll move on from that now. So here's where we get to the architecture side. Now, apologies really for the lack of resolution. It's a combination of working with this laptop and that screen. Best sort of device to put this on is a high-resolution monitor sitting on your desk with a nice sort of 26-inch screen, which is what I've got in my office, but can't take it on the road. But effectively what this has done now is it's broken out all of those use cases. It said that based on the information that you've given us, there are 3,224 of these shared workstations. So shared workstation, a workstation that's used by more than one person for significant amounts of time. So the software's doing that for you. It's saying, here are all of your shared workstations. We can see who moves around with them. We can identify them. We can see how often they do it, but there's the shared workstations. Then we've got 640. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll move this across. Give us a bit more room. Here I've got my secure workers. Now they happen to be, in this instance, the same as my road warriors. So I can see that some of the software that's been designated for secure usage also applies for people who are out on the road. I've got this group here, which are static mobile devices. So out of a total of 1,100 or so mobile devices, 517 of them are static. They're mobile devices, but no VPN software is ever used. They're never using the machine offline. It's always connected to the corporate intranet. So we can immediately start to look at this in solutioning terms as a potential different solution. It doesn't have to be the same as our road warriors. We can look at them differently. We could, if we wanted to, start to persuade them not to use mobile devices since they're not mobile, but that would very much depend on their level of seniority and clout and all the rest of it. You might just want to keep quiet there. But we've also picked off task workers, so these are not people who don't share workstations, but have just got basic task stuff, no knowledge worker software, no secure software, etc., etc. And down at the bottom here, we've now got some choices. So which FlexCast solution do you want to use? And you'll see here we've got outlined possible solutions, and then the ability for the user to select it, and we've gone across to the Citrix website for each one as we go through so that the user can, if they so wish, start to understand that a bit more, play the Citrix video, do whatever they like. And you'll see that as we step through, the decisions and the recommendations are different depending on the use case, the user group down here. So when we get down to, let's just say our static mobile, we've got more choices for static mobile than we do, for example, for our road warriors because of the nature of the beast there. So this is the opportunity to start to impose the decisions that you want on the architecture. And as it all says Citrix there, it doesn't have to be Citrix. It could be any solution that provides the same sort of virtualization. And what we're doing here is, and it's appropriate really for BriForum, reading a recent Brian Madden white paper on what's the quickest way to slow down a VDI implementation. The answer is scale it. And the reason that he gives for that is that generally implementations tend to be driven from pilot outwards. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to give the strategic view of the enterprise so that design decisions can be made at a strategic level before we implement at a tactical level. And we'll come on to the tactical side a bit later. So at this level, we're looking at the strategy for the whole thing rather than the tactics. I'm going to jump a couple of stages here. Let's just squeeze this up a little bit. Busy chart. Can't read the bottom. Sorry about that. But along the bottom, what is this? This is the tail. This is the tail. Across the bottom, we have the applications that are used. And for this client, there are something like 2,500 installed application packages. And when we get down to usage, 357 of them are actually used. And here are the 357 or so applications. And what we see here, the blue line, represents the percentage of users who use application number 1, 2, 3 to 357 across the bottom. So what we see here is that there are relatively few applications that are used by significant proportions of users. So think about this in terms of, this is sort of setting your master build. It's trying to understand what applications get used by most people really quickly. And we've got two views on this. One is based on a user percentage, and the red line down here is based on the number of sessions, or the percentage of sessions that that application generates. And you'll see we come from a Citrix background here because we talk in terms of sessions and so forth. But this is telling us about the size of our user base and the applications that they most use. And in this box over here, in order of usage size are all of those applications. But what I can do here is I can start to set some rules. So I can say, okay, for my master build, the thing that I'm most interested in are applications that have generated in the period more than 10,000 sessions and that are used by more than, say, 10 users. And this is what my tail looks like now. So I've gone from 357 applications to about 80, 90. Again, I can see that I'm hitting my tail quite quickly, but now these are generally people or applications that generate a large number of sessions or which are used by a large number of people. But I've immediately reduced that. And if I were to, let's just say, move that up to 50, let's see what that looks like. There we go. I'm now down to 43 applications in that master list. And there they all are. They're the applications that we're thinking at this stage of putting into our master build. I can deselect them, so I can look down here and I can find, for example, well, can I find anything that I know is not used? Well, let's just say, for the sake of example, I was going to get rid of SAP. I can deselect that. That disappears. It goes into my discards box along with all the others that I've done previously. So there's my basic build. There's all the stuff that's not in the discard box. Effectively, I've taken my pack of cards, of 357 cards, and I've said this is the order in which I'm going to start to play them. Here's my master build. These are the things I'm really interested in. Here's my secondary stuff, the application tail, the onesies and twosies. I can determine how I want to deliver those, and here are all my discards, the things that I'm not going to take through. So if I want to lose iTunes in there, if I want to lose some of those things, I can do that at that point. And effectively now what I've got for my next stage is I've got a list here in my base build of all of those applications that I need to do some accreditation on now. Now I might know the answer to the problem, but I might not. So I can just right-click, export, send those off to a CSV file. I won't open it. And give that to my AppDNA, ChangeBase, whatever implementation. With me so far, guys? Good. So the next stage for me is to load up the results of that process. So at this point, time has passed. I've sent out that list of applications. I've run them through the discovery tool. I've got my remediation information, I've got some spreadsheets, I've got an MHT file, I put the path to that, and I can import it, and then I can see exactly what that looks like. So I can see the application, I can see the AppDNA description of the problem, if there is a problem. If I go down to this one, Roxio, then we'll be able to see. I can see that it's a red, so this is coming directly from the tool. I can look at the Windows 7, AppV, Server 2008 reports for those things very, very quickly. Now, I don't have to, at this stage, go off to AppDNA or ChangeBase. I could just come into this, which is all set to green to start with, out of the box, and go in and change the things that I know are troublesome. So I could get a very quick and dirty view just by using my own knowledge and intelligence at this point. I couldn't, but I'm sure you could. It's your opportunity to make those things before you went off and did the remediation discovery. And the reason these things are important is, faced with a situation where you've done your inventory, you've got 2,500 apps, how do you know which ones you want to get remediation information on? If you can't look at the usage, and even if you've got the usage, the last used information, say from SCCM, you're still going to get 357 applications. How do you choose which ones of those 357 you're going to put into your remediation process? So what we're doing all the time is we're narrowing this down. We're trying to make life easier, cheaper, quicker, et cetera, et cetera. And if let's just go to my deployment. So what we've done here on the deployment side is we've said, okay, based on the remediation information that's come in and based on the choices you've made about those applications which are going into your master build, what is the sequencing of my remediation? Because I've got some red, amber, green stuff in there. Green stuff's fine, but what do I need to do, and in what order do I need to do it? So what this is saying is you've got, out of your 5,500 users, you've got 75 only where there's no remediation required. So you set out of the box, 75 people you could go and do some stuff to without having to do any application remediation. If you were to remediate Adobe Acrobat Reader 8.12 on its own, you'd get 1,820 users that you could then go off and virtualize. If I were to do Adobe Acrobat Reader and OpenText Live Link Explorer, I'd get another 1,407. So think about this. We've remediated 2 applications, Adobe Reader and OpenText, and we've gone from 75 users that we can virtualize to, do the maths, 3,300-ish. So more than 50% of our estate we've got now low-hanging fruit through just remediating 2 applications. So this is all about how do I do this stuff quickly and at scale and at a strategic level. That I'm very, very quickly here, I'm setting out my stall that, you know, law of diminishing marginal returns, of course, kicks in. If I do Adobe Acrobat 6 standard, and that's the full product, Reader and OpenText Link, then I can pull in another 170. And then it gets less and less and less. So you can see that what this is doing is it's trying to get you to a position where you can, with certainty, quickly get people across to your new solution because you know what they use, you know what needs to be remediated, you know what group they're in. So I'm now going to drop down. How am I doing for time, Paul? Am I? 20 minutes. Plenty of time. That's nothing. Brief headline of the usage solution. Little bit of a Brian Madden article, I think, going down there. That's the importance of strategic design, which I was talking about earlier. But if I drop down into users, well, let's go into the sort of deep and dirty. So here are my solutions. I've got 3 solutions based on the decisions I've made: hosted VDI, local VM, and on-demand. And you can see here the use groups that fall into those solutions. Hosted VDI for my static mobile knowledge workers, local VM for my road warriors, and on-demand for my shared and task workers. And if I click on any one of these solutions, what I see is all of the users for that solution. I see all the applications for that solution, and I see the template for that solution. The template is effectively how do those applications that I've chosen get divvied out into groups. So all of the people that use application A, B, C, D, but not E. All of those people that use A, B, C, D, and E. Those that use A, C, D, and E. So you can see we're starting to drive down into, if you like, micro templates. So based on your master image, how do those start to shift out? And the reason for doing that, and we don't currently have it in the product, is that what we're looking to do is to provide a number of different views on implementation. So there's an implementation view which is least application licensing cost. There's an implementation view which is least maintenance effort. There's an implementation view which is a combination of those two. So what we're trying to do is effectively do the smarts with the data in order to give those decisions. Am I making sense? Still with me? Good. Okay. So for each one, I can look at the solution. At any point, I can right-click, export, do what I want with that. If I go to then the application tail, so this is now looking, so very similar screen to the one we looked at before, but now it's looking at the tail for that specific group. So what does it look like for that specific user group in terms of users percent, sessions percent? I can do the same for user concurrency. So again, for each solution, what does my concurrency look like? Now, depending on the solution, so for example, if I look at on-demand apps, I probably shouldn't have done that. Anyway, hosted VDI, I'll stick with that one since it's there, and I'll talk quickly before the screen disappears. It's doing a lot of work whilst I'm talking, but effectively it's saying for that group of users, 560 users, I've got to provide at any one time, it's my static mobile, so that's all right. I've got to provide at any one time just short of 500 images spinning. So 560 users, less than 500 images. There's my on-demand group. So if I'm doing and you know, bear with me here. So this is on-demand applications. If I'm managing that at a session level, I've got to deal with 9,921 concurrent sessions. So what we're doing is we're modeling. We're modeling your to-be infrastructure and demand based on our experience of today. Since, other than taking a few applications away here and there and maybe replacing others, we're not going to change the way that our users behave in terms of their applications or their jobs. We're just changing the delivery mechanism for them. So this is modeling infrastructure size based on existing demand. So at a session-based level, it's saying, in order for me to meet the demand placed on the system by those 3,765 users, I need to be able to manage just under 10,000 sessions concurrently. If I was providing an image-based solution for them, and this is where it does become interesting, that 3,765 users, I need to have a maximum of 1,215 images spinning at any one time in order to satisfy their demand. Now, this is real demand data. It's not guessing. This is what the users actually tell us through their behavior, not through filling in questionnaires or anything else. I'm going to jump across now. There's a panel here which is estate resources, and this is where I'm going to start to go down into the weeds a bit. Here we've got, for each solution, memory profile, IOPS profile, login profile. How many logins will I have to manage at peak for that particular solution? But I'm going to concentrate here on IOPS. Some of you may know we've a partnership with Atlantis. Atlantis are in the business of making IOPS work in a virtualization environment and work at a much lower cost. And the reason that they like us and we like them is because the level of detail that we collect and the way in which we collect that means that we can accurately model IOPS performance. And I'm going to sort of take you into some slides in a moment that take you there. And this is really important. It's really important to understand that when you're trying to model infrastructure demand, the tools that you need to use have to be real time. Not real time in terms of reporting, but real time in terms of understanding what a user uses or doesn't use. Tools which adopt a sampling technique, we'll take a snapshot every minute or we'll take a snapshot every 15 seconds, means that what you'll see are peaks and troughs, but you won't see the detail in between. Well, you may not even see the peaks and troughs. You'll see whatever was showing when they took the sample. Ours takes detailed information every time the user interacts with an application. So as they move Outlook and go back to the Excel spreadsheet that they were using 5 minutes before, we pick up that action and we pick up that detail, which is why Atlantis and us get on very, very well, because we accurately describe what's going on at a resource level. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just jump into a PowerPoint deck, slideshow from current slide, and just show you some pictures. This is from this particular client, and I'm not showing you it in the product because the resolution that I've gone to here, which is per day, and actually per second in the day, is just not doable in that interface. We'd have to bring it up a number of levels, but I want to get down to the real nitty-gritty. And these slides will all look the same or very similar, and they're telling you the same thing. So this is for peak application memory in gigabytes, broken down by application. So we can see Internet Explorer there at the bottom, followed by Outlook, followed by Word, followed by ISInfo. You get what I'm showing you there. And it's once people start coming into work, there we've got sort of 6 o'clock in the morning, and there we've got 6 o'clock at night. The picture sort of stables out. I don't know how many of you went to the Isle of Wight when you were kids, but this is the sort of alum lighthouse with all the layers of different coloured sand picture. And it's a nice picture. It shows you that memory is pretty, it's pretty stable. It's pretty consistent. If I go to the next one, we're now looking at GDI. Same day, same applications. Again, pretty consistent. Nice picture. Bear in mind, this is what I do for a living now, so excuse me. And then we've got IOPS. Now, IOPS is a little bit more sensitive. And why is that? Because whereas the other two are sort of application-based, IOPS is much more about the content. IOPS is much more about, okay, well, what did you open? When you opened Excel, did you open a great big spreadsheet or did you open a little tiny spreadsheet? And if it was a great big spreadsheet, you'll see a lot more activity. Don't tend to see a lot more memory or GDI usage. They tend to be quite stable. So that's why in the world of IOPS, and this is read and write added together, it's a bit more spiky. But it's still, it's still quite nice if I go back and compare it with the other two. It's the punk version. It's the Jedward of resources. And that's the 17th of January, and I'm just going to go now to the 19th of January. Jump forward a couple of days. Same client, 5,500 users, but bear in mind, probably only half of those at any one time actually at work and doing something. So again, memory, GDI, boing. But then, IOPS, whoa, what's happened there? What's happened there? That's Adobe Reader 8.1. We've got a great big spike. Now, what's caused the spike is the question. Now, as a data scientist, you just want to know, well, what's that? And you spend days wallowing through the data in order to find out. But what you find, of course, is insight. And what you find is that anyone who tells you that there is such a thing as a threshold that you can set for IOPS or memory or GDI doesn't know what they're talking about. Because there's no such thing. Applications, by and large, do what applications do. Yes, of course, when you're building applications, we've all been there, you can get memory leaks, poorly designed applications, etc. So they tend to be quite marginal things. But here's Adobe Reader 8.1 that's suddenly spiking. It's not a problem with Adobe Reader 8.1, is it? It's going to be a problem with what's being consumed in 8.1. And when you look at the data backs it up time after time after time. It's not what the user does. It's not what the application does. It's what content the user is using in that. And what is the behavior of the organization? Now, this organization is it's concerned with potential problems. And when those problems occur, lots of people need to know about those problems and investigations need to be done. And the way those problems are usually described with a snapshot of a very complicated screen. So communications about problems tend to be quite content-rich. They go to lots of people, and they go to those people via email. So if I'll seek to illustrate that. I'll break out of this for a second and just go to the data. There's always the data, and as you'll see, I'm using my test rig here. So what I've got over here, up at the top, is I've got a list of all of the PDF files that we used on the 19th of January. And I'm going to, in the best tradition of Blue Peter, I'm going to go to a user that I've already identified. Oh, no, I'm not. Let's go again. 73007. Okay. So here we're seeing what that user is using. So this, effectively, Microsoft Outlook is the parent-child of the parent application here for, if I go down to it, find it somewhere. Oops. Excuse me. It's going to be there somewhere. So PDF, CA4114, there it is. And it's an AC emergency fire reported that's been sent out. Now, what we find when we look at this is that the document name is a standard document name. It's actually the name of the report warning. So it's a sort of statutory name, if you like. So what you see across the environment is loads of these names. And they're not the same document. They're actually, lots of them are very, very different documents. They change each day, et cetera, et cetera. So what have we had here? The thing that has caused the spike is an incident. The way in which this organization communicates that incident is via email. They use Adobe Acrobat to articulate it, and it contains quite a high media content. It's a snapshot of a screen that goes out, in this case, to around about 437 people instantaneously. And what do they all do? Because these are important things. Ooh, open it up. So that's a spike. It's Adobe Reader 8.1. It's in IOPS. Nothing to do with the application, nothing to do with the user per se. It's all to do with what went into that document itself and how that document was distributed across the organization. 5 minutes, okay. And here we go. This is, I just don't know whether this, it doesn't translate on my screen, so there's no chance of it really coming across well on this screen, but hey ho. Welcome to my world. This is a picture. I'm going to come where I can see it because I haven't really seen it. I've strained my eyes looking at it on my screen. This is a picture of all of the people who use that document together with all of the other things that they use, the other content that they use. So it could be Excel spreadsheets, it could be other PDF files, it could be anything at all. And what we see, because this is a group of, as I say, around about 500 people, is that this breaks down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 big elements of similarity in terms of what they do, and a number of smaller elements that are sort of stuck away inside here, tending to be the black ones, where groups of them coalesce around those enterprise documents. And what this is teasing me towards, of course, is the next step in this trail, which is to start to define workflow groups based on the way in which they share information across an organization. Am I making sense here? So that what we've got in this mix is something which is very, very rich. We start off with quite simplistic and crude device-based understanding of users. We bring that up a level by starting to understand their application usage. We take that up a level by looking at what applications are important to them, and then we start to try and understand what do they use in those applications. What are the things that knit them together beyond the fact that they use Adobe Acrobat 8.1? The thing that knits this group together is their common usage of those 7 or 8 document groups that sit around the outside. Now, 3 of those I know will all run in Adobe, so looking at the application wouldn't tell you this, it would just tell you that they share the use of Adobe application. What this is telling us is much more about that enterprise and what that enterprise does and the way that people work within that enterprise. Next time I stand up, hopefully I'll have something which is a little bit more consumable, but you get the direction of travel, I hope, with this, which is that it's what the user does at a document level or a deep application level that's important here. And what is it that drives, when a machine freezes up, is it because of the machine? Usually not. Is it because of the applications that are loaded on that machine? Usually not. Is it because of the applications that are open at that time? Usually not. It's usually because the user has got 7 versions of an application open on the screen with a dirty, great big Excel spreadsheet, or has been using Calculator to, what was that one, Dave, that we used to use? You know the one, don't you? It's all about the user's use of resources that drives resources. So our direction of travel is one that says, unless you understand this, then IOPS and GDI and memory and CPU are pretty much useless, because all they'll tell you is that applications that we all think are easily doable become problems, and they become problems because of the way in which they're used. So again, looking at the sort of Citrix type solutions and Atlantis and other things, smarter ways to store things, use of ShareFile, use of SharePoint, different distribution mechanisms, all of which make the implementation so much easier. I guess I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all very much indeed. Back to Paul. There is.
So thanks, Jeremy. Everybody hear me on this microphone? Yeah, good. So, you know, I think the point about what Jeremy's shown is Jeremy spends all his life trying to help organizations understand what are the key factors to look at to drive their deployment planning. And it's not the things that ordinarily people start out thinking about. You know, the devices, the apps, all that, that's the straightforward bit. It's how users use things that screw you up when it comes to planning the right capacity in your deployments. And that's all the things we spend more and more time gathering information about. Now, what we do find, and I'm going to attempt to try and do something my wife says I can never do, which is multitask. So I'm going to try and hold the microphone and demo at the same time. So apologies if I fumble fingers here.
No excuses, eh?
Oh, no.
Huh?
Oh, good. I don't have to multitask.
Yeah, I think if you're going to be...
Yeah, I'm just going to speak.
Yeah. Hold that one in the pocket, please.
Yeah. Okay. Get the mic to.
And same with that one.
Yeah, okay. All right, everybody still hear me? Right, apologies for that. What we find when organizations go further down the path of transforming their desktops is the best answer is almost always a blended use of technologies to deliver applications to users to enable them to work. So there will be some that will get everything they need in a hosted virtual desktop. There will be some road warriors, for example, that may need still a local fat desktop machine. They may be better served by a hosted virtual desktop on the client side. And then almost all users have some need for an overlay of either software as a service delivered applications or applications delivered virtually via platforms like Terminal Services and Citrix. But a blend is almost always the best combination to deliver the right apps to the right users in the right context. And that creates a whole selection of other challenges for organizations as you build out that infrastructure. It's great for IT to have that flexibility. If you go back to what Brian was saying in the opening keynote this morning, what is the future state of a desktop? The future state of a desktop is not going to be a single physical entity. It's going to be a layered entity consisting of all those things. Physical or virtual desktop, some virtualized applications, streamed applications, SaaS applications. And those can all come from different locations. They may not all come from infrastructure that you as IT departments build and manage. You may outsource that. They may come off service providers. You may be buying in software as a service. You may be buying in platforms as a service or infrastructure. And you've got things potentially in different security contexts. So you create problems for users in where exactly do they go to get all the things they need, which apps, where do they get all their content from, how do they authenticate themselves and remember multiple sets of identities in order to access those things to do their job. A single virtual desktop is great because it deals with most of that complexity, and that was about that security context that Brian was talking about. But there's a broader set of problems. And one of the things that we've done time and time again for customers from our consulting days is build a custom solution to solve that set of problems for organizations. We've now turned that into a product that helps organizations unify all that into what we call Workspace Universal, which is how do you bring it all together and make it easy for users to access. So this is a web-based interface where you have a single identity that you put in. And hopefully if I get it right, it will log me in. Okay. So I've got to my kind of workspace now. Now the first thing that happens here is this is the first time that I've accessed my workspace off this machine. So now it's asking, because it knows this is a new machine, what kind of, what's the name? So I can just put, it's Jeremy's laptop, and this is a machine owned by work, so that's great. You can automate some of these processes to identify devices. Now, the reason we do this is there may be higher levels of trust you want to place in some devices to allow use of local applications. Other ones, you may decide that you're not going to allow use of local applications on those devices because you don't know them and you don't trust them and you don't know what version number is. What I get now is access to my, and again, we're struggling with the resolution here, but what I get is a collection of objects on the page here that give me access to most common things I've got. So content down here, applications up here. Now, if I want to rearrange this page, I can grab any of these and drag and drop them around, create my personal view on this, and that's stored and retained. Above and beyond the core kind of apps and content for me as a user, I've also got one or two other things. So there's a notice board here, which is basically a, if you like, a blog feed that IT can use to deliver the latest and greatest information to me about IT services. So most of our customers use this to deliver service updates on if they're taking mail servers down or any other servers, what the outages are going to be, when they're going to happen, and who they're going to affect. So it's basically an IT latest and greatest news feed that's built in here. So we're bringing together all the applications and content for the users. I can look in more detail at that and show you the kind of things that we do for customers already. I just flip to the applications page. Now these are all the lists of the applications that this user that I've logged in as has an entitlement to. So these applications, as far as I'm concerned as a user, I didn't need to worry or care about where they come from, but these come from all kinds of different platforms. So I've got some things that come off terminal services. We've just prefixed them with TS so you can see those. I've got, 2X is another one of the application delivery platforms. I've got virtual desktops in here. I've got cloud applications. And I've got other folders with other apps in. So I've got a collection of apps here that are off of the Citrix Zen app platform, for example. So as a user, I'm just looking at this going, I've got a collection of apps I can use. I don't need to worry about where they are. I'm not being asked to deliver any other identities to get access to those. I can just click and I can run them. Now what this is doing is leveraging any virtual infrastructure choice that you choose to make. Whether you go Citrix, VMware, Quest, Microsoft, you choose the technologies you want. We can provide this to integrate all those back together to simplify life for your users so they have one place to go. And as you move things around on this interface or within your infrastructure, you don't have to change the experience for the user. The user can still have the same set of icons here, but today, if I click on this, it may launch me a local version of Word. Next week, when you've implemented, say, a Zen app farm, when I click on it, I might get Word off the Zen app farm. As a user, I'm not worried about that. I don't have to change my behavior. I just have to keep clicking on the icon that gives me the app I want. So basically, unified aggregation of all the resources, regardless of choices you make on what platform you deploy them to. The other thing here is we see that wide range. So what we build as a result of seeing everything available off all those platforms, we build, in effect, an enterprise catalog of available applications. So this is the catalog. Now, as a user, there are other things that I could choose to add to my subscription. So I've got things here. Anything with a plus sign is something I'm not currently subscribed to. And if I want to subscribe to it, I just click on it. And back to the point Brian was making about consumerization, our view is part of consumerization and a big part of the pressure that comes on IT comes from the fact that users have this experience at home over the consumer web, that they can do everything instantly, and they've got all these simple experiences, and they bring those into work, and they're frustrated because they don't have the same instant response. So part of what we're trying to build here is a self-service, kind of consumer-oriented experience. So in this case, where I've asked for this app, it essentially takes me into something for consumers is very familiar, right? A shopping cart experience. Hey, you asked for that. Let me just come across here. It says, yep, you've got one of those that you asked for, and the value of that is 1 credit. So with this system, you can use real money values if you want on the apps. You can use credits as a nominal way of allocating an amount of resource availability to users, or you can just bypass the whole cost side and just say, yeah, we'll allow you to subscribe, no limits on that. But in a kind of self-service world, you've got to start thinking, getting users to think about pay-per-use, and that's part of why we put these facilities in, and some of our customers have asked for this specifically. So go through a process of checkout. That checkout basically initiates a behind-the-scenes workflow that figures out where is that app available from and how can it be provisioned to that user. Some can be instantly provisioned. For example, if it's a Citrix environment, you can click and you can add that user then to the subscription or the published group for that published application. If that is an application that needs to be installed locally on the machine, you may have a more convoluted process to get that down to the user. But the workflow can deal with all that behind the scenes. This is all about trying to get as quickly as possible to the point where you are delivering the apps to the user when they request and demand them, with the context of control about how many things they can subscribe to by using a limitation on credit values. So the other side of this is, let's go back, is we also track usage of applications. So you go back to what Jeremy's talking about, and our heritage on Workspace IQ side is, IQ was actually built originally as the metering engine for usage of resources that sits inside Universal and gives us this, what is being used, which apps are the most popular or the least popular, which ones haven't I used, and how can I, unsubscribing to those is just one click. So as a user, I'm starting to be conditioned by what the system can tell me about this using intelligence. It can make recommendations on the apps that I maybe want to think about adding to my subscription and just advertise the latest and greatest applications. And it also tells me something about my current credit status. Have I got a facility to subscribe to more applications? So if I come back up here, so it says, currently 48 of my 60 allocated credits are being consumed by the subscriptions I have. I can add more here because I still have 12 unallocated credits for subscriptions to apps. So application access, trying to make this easy for users. I'm just going to switch to one other different system here if I can. So the whole of the user interface on this, it's all HTML5, web-driven, completely configurable. This is another similar system. I just wanted to show you on this the fact that we have that ability to configure the interface. So this can be absolutely customized to your look and feel, your corporate branding. Give you an example of the kind of authentication problems that we solve. So any Windows application, we provide the credential sets, but we've extended that now. Oops. Try that again. Okay. So I clicked on that icon to launch Office 365, which obviously includes Microsoft SaaS service for Office. Hopefully we'll get through to that in a minute. No, we can't. Okay. Not quite sure why I'm having connection problems. It's always the way. I knew I should have sacrificed somebody to the demo gods this morning, but there you go. Right, we'll try it one more time if it doesn't work. Not happy about something. All right. I guess you'll just have to take my word for it that we deal with all that credential management behind the scenes. So users, once they've done that initial login to this system, they don't have to be asked for another set of credentials to authenticate themselves to any apps that we deliver or allow them access to via Universal. We take care of all that secondary identity management right way through to cloud and SaaS applications as well. And that's, if you've got SaaS identities, you can link those back to your AD identity for users. So if that user leaves the organization, you deprovision them, and that can disable the SaaS account as well automatically. The other side of what we deliver here is content. So if I just, let's go to this one. So on the content side, we basically allow organizations to bring in any folder locations, both private and shared for users, as well as any SharePoint content. And we're looking right now at how we bring in a lot of these virtual file folder systems like FileShare and Box.com and Dropbox and so on. So it's basically locations that users can get content from. Now, what happens when the user clicks on any piece of content that they want is policy control. So in this case, I clicked on a PDF file that actually pulled that PDF file down locally and said, here's the local PDF reader to view it in. This is where I find out whether you've got Citrix client installed. If I click on this one, we'll see what happens here. So it's now, you can probably tell from here, everybody's familiar with Citrix. It's not trying to download that document. It's actually trying to download an ICA file. I'm not sure, because I'm demoing off an unfamiliar machine, whether there's Citrix clients in there. So now I clicked on the Word document. As a user, I didn't make any choices. I just said, hey, I want to open that document, right? So what the policy in the system has done is said, okay, my policy says, based on the machine you're on, type of machine it is, the type of document you've tried to access, the location that's there, my answer for you is I will deliver you that content inside a published version of Word off the CNAP platform. So we allow you to set that policy that controls data consumption, which app in which location is the right one in that set of circumstances for a user to allow them to do some manipulation of that content. Does that make sense, the policy control? Right? The answer isn't always virtual or isn't always local, and the answer can change over the working day for a user. They're in the office on the LAN, the answer may be, hey, you're on a trusted machine, local app is fine. When you're on a remote machine, on your home machine, we don't necessarily know or trust that. We can make a different decision about how that content is hosted within an application and drive it to a SaaS solution or a virtual platform to deliver that app. So that's really the set of problems we're trying to solve for users is easy access to content, easy access to applications, enable them to do their job. If they need to self-service subscribe to other things, it's easy for them to add applications or remove them from their resource set. You can have some governance on that with that pricing or credit value control. And there's a few other self-service elements to this. So one of our customers, for example, has put this out, and it has a, if I, let me just close this down. Oops. So, so for example, if I log out of here, one of the things you'll find down here is how many people have used forgot passwords on web systems, right? Most people use them all the time. You've got so many identities these days. So we do the same kind of thing for users in the enterprise environment when they can't remember the password. So they can do a self-service password reset of their Active Directory password, and this system's tied directly into the Active Directory. So what we're doing is taking that load off the help desk. So for example, one of our customers has reduced their help desk call volume by 75% on password resets because the users are now unable to do that themselves. Right? Just real straightforward, simple things like that that make the user experience that much better and deal with that consumerization pressure that IT is under. So this is just a platform we know is going to end up being one of the key things you'll need in the infrastructure as you diversify where you put all the apps across different platforms, as you outsource and put things, or bring in SaaS solutions. You're going to create other issues that you need to solve for the users. And Universal is one of those solutions that can help you solve a number of those key problems as they come up. So we're about out of time. I think we've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions for myself or Jeremy about what we've shown? Question at the back there, I think. Hang on a sec. We're just going to bring you a microphone so everybody can hear you. Right to the back there.
Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah.
With the self-provisioning, I would assume this is moving people around in AD groups. So assume you provision an app that sits on a Citrix system.
Yep.
When the user self-provisions, does that app open up on, say, their terminal server session? Or is it exclusively through your portal?
So I think there are two aspects to that, right? One is as the IT department, what do you choose to provision and where? So you make decisions that say, well, actually, based on, let's say, using IQ or a similar tool, I know I've got 500 users that need to get that app off a virtual app delivery platform. So I'm going to put it on Zen App or terminal services. So you publish it and you preset the set of users you know need that. Now, over time, what we know is user behavior changes gradually. So you'll get other users that maybe come in and join that department and say, oh, I need that app. So rather than you having to go back and say, oh, I need to add those users now, that subscription process becomes a user-driven one at that point. And they say, yeah, I need that app now. And that provisioning workflow then does that on behalf of the user. Now, that workflow can be driven back just into somebody in IT to do a push delivery to the user, or it can be automated to just add them to that publishing group for that application. So you've got a first pass, put the apps where you need them. Second pass, as user behavior changes, you know, the app users can pull the apps as their needs change. Right. Any other questions, guys? Right. So you got one?
Yeah. Maybe you repeat it simply. Which type of strong authentication mechanisms are supported?
So the question was, which type of strong authentication mechanisms? And you're talking about this solution here.
Yeah.
So we can support on the initial login page multi-factor authentication. So we've done deployments with things like Secure ID. Whether you regard that as secure authentication these days, I don't know. It depends how much you trust in the Secure ID code. But yeah, we can do multi-factor authentication at the front. I think we can do radius-based one. There's another system that we support whose name escapes me at the moment. But yeah, we can provide that multi-factor auth on the initial page. On the back end, it's mostly Active Directory auths we're doing to Windows-based applications. Does that address your question? Or all right, thank you. Any other ones? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for bearing with us. If there's any other questions you want to talk to Jeremiah, we'll be around for the next few minutes. Thank you.